Today on CityCast Chicago.
Do you remember when it was like September?
It's Earth, Wind, and Fire Day. No, like officially. There was a whole proclamation by the mayor and everything. So let's groove and remember all the ways and reasons Chicago shaped one of the most iconic groups of all time. It's Thursday, September 21st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's singing about. Dr. Trenton Bailey is a professor at Clark Atlanta University and the author of Do You Remember? Celebrating 50 years of Earth, Wind, and Fire. For people not familiar with Earth, Wind, and Fire, Dr. Bailey, can you describe their sound?
Their sound, I would definitely have to say it's a blend of funk, soul, R&B, pop, a little bit of disco in there.
Mm-hmm.
And overall, it's just feel-good music with a positive message. Earth, Wind, and Fire has always been my favorite group. I'm a child of the 70s, so even though I was, just a toddler, listening to their music, I had older brothers and sisters, so we always had good music playing in our house. But Earth, Wind, and Fire stood out from everybody else.
I mean, and it's such a beautiful history, the way that they push forward music through in so many ways. But let's take it back to the late 50s, early 60s, where we find founder Maurice White. He's moving from Memphis to Chicago. How do these two cities come together to help shape his musical background?
I am a product of Memphis. That's my hometown. So
I know.
Always knew that, Maurice White was from Memphis. So in Memphis, we do claim Maurice White. We don't necessarily, we kind of claim Earth, Wind, and Fire, but, we definitely claim Maurice White as our native son. So he started out playing, drums in junior high school. He was in the marching band. So he was, a musical, child. So after he graduated, from high school, of course, he moved to Chicago with this, mother, stepdad, and all his, siblings. And for a while, believe he was going, if I'm not mistaken, he was going to be a doctor at first. But, he shifted into music. That was his, passion. So he went to the Chicago Conservatory of Music for a while. He was a session drummer at, Chess Records.
What are some of those sounds from the 50s and 60s, whether it's gospel, whether it's jazz, that are really influencing Maurice at this time?
Yeah, definitely, gospel, because he was raised in a Baptist church, and also jazz. Phil Colran, who was the director of the Afro Arts Theater in Chicago. It was founded in 1967 on, I think it was South Drexel.
Oakwood and Drexel.
Yeah. Phil Colran, he had the Afrocentric vibe, so that's where he got, that from with his love for Egyptology, the symbolisms and all that. And actually, when Maurice White, I don't know if you know this, you probably do, when he first started his group, it was not called Earth, Wind, and Fire. I'm not going to say what it was called, let everyone, purchase the book. And it was a very, some people say, I don't want to, strange name.
The Salty Peppers.
I didn't want you to say that.
I was going to give it away to the people. He had some moderate success, with his original group. His brother at the time was here in Chicago. Some of his other songwriting partners. Why head west to L.A.?
Well, especially at that time, back in the 60s and 70s, Hollywood was the place to be. People thought that, Los Angeles would help everybody become a star, and just do better. So he just felt like he needed a change. So he went from Chicago to Los Angeles, and we all know that was a good move for him.
Yeah, I mean, even 50 years later, that trope of leaving the Midwest to either go to one of the coasts, right? It still exists at this time. And when we think of the 70s for Earth, Wind, and Fire, at this point, right, 50 years later, we think of it as this I mean, this rocket ship of a decade, but it really was a roller coaster going out to LA. I mean, by 1972, you know, they've sort of hit a wall at this point. You know, what are those early years like for Earth, Wind, and Fire?
Early years, like you said, they were growing years, learning because the personnel was, changing, often in. So there was like a transition period. It was a growing period.
Exactly.
About 1973, they finally found their niche because Maurice White said, he was very particular about the people he wanted in his band. So when he found those, those guys who clicked, I think that's when it finally took off. They realized what the young people at that time wanted, during the 70s, because they were, the sounds were changing. So, and funk was coming into play, but still you had a lot of, jazz, soul, R&B.
Yeah. I mean, in 74 and 75, you've got hits like Mighty Mighty and Devotion. You've got some of my favorites like The Way of the World, Reasons, Shining Star. What is your favorite cut from those, from that run?
At that time, I was just a toddler. So my favorite was Shining Star. Even though I was, so young, I understood the lyrics to it. So
you knew it was a hit like everybody else did.
So Shining Star, I think from that period, from that transition period, Shining Star was my favorite.
You're a shining star, no matter who you are, shining bright to see what you can truly be, what you can truly be.
That took them to a totally new level because they were the first black artist to have the #1 song and album on the Billboard chart simultaneously.
They were winning Grammys at this point. They were recognized as one of the best artists in the world. How do they adjust to that fame? Early on, Maurice is self-confident and shy, but at this time, the group is challenging what you can see on stage.
Maurice understood that they were getting bigger, so he had to, make his mindset bigger. Like I said, he wanted the concerts to be more grand. He wanted the pyramids, magic and all that. Because he understood, that we got to do this big because we are big. So, and they just, roll with it. Each tour got better and better.
I mean, towards the tail end of that decade, the song we started this episode out with, September, is another one of these classic songs. Is there a significance to September 21st? It's Earth, Wind, and Fire Day now, but was there a significance to it?
According to Maurice White, there was no significance to that day. It just sounded good.
It just sounded good.
Yeah, it just sounded good. They just made feel-good music, and good music would last forever. No matter when it was recorded, it sounds good, has a good message, it will last forever.
By the end, there are things like Boogie Wonderland. The sound has grown. It's changed in a lot of ways. What would you say Earth, Wind, and Fire's impact is on not just Chicago music, but American music?
Ooh. Earth, Wind, and Fire is a national treasure, even a global treasure. So their impact on music, like they have been sampled by so many, artists. It's just a unique sound that everyone loves. The horns, and it was a gift to the world. I mean, I can't explain it really. People just love it.
I mean, they a few of the group members, Philip Bailey, Ralph Johnson, Verdine, right, toured long after their prime years, but the group changed throughout the 80s and 90s. I mean, Maurice White fell ill. How did the group still remain relevant even as the years passed and the sound changed?
The classic period ended in '83 because Maurice was just tired of working straight for like 14 years, so he put the band on hiatus. So in 1987, they realized that people still loved Earth, Wind, and Fire, so he said, well, let's give it another run at it. Some of the old, guys came back, but they also brought in like a couple of new guys. So System of Survival, 1987. Thinking of You, they had some more hits. and they realized that, they could still tour, not on such a grand, scale as it was in the 70s, but they could still, tour, and people, love their music. I think Maurice White fell ill around 90, maybe 91, Parkinson's disease. But like I said, the people still love the, music, and they realized that they could, do that without Maurice. So that's how they carried the name forward.
I mean, throughout this 50 years, do you think Chicago gets its place in their story? I know they moved away, but do you think we can really claim Earth, Wind, and Fire in such a strong way?
I think it does, because everybody, I talk to, they always say, well, Earth, Wind, and Fire started in Chicago. People always, say that. So a lot of people do know that he started his band in Chicago, even though it wasn't called Earth, Wind, and Fire then. But people do, recognize that that's where he got his start. His big musical start. You all can, make that claim. I'll give it to you.
What are some of the go-tos people have to add to the collection? Give me a top 5, give me a top 3, no order. What are 5 that have to be in the Earth, Wind, and Fire playlist?
Shining Star, September, Let's Groove, Get Away. There's so many. Reasons, Devotion, Sing a Song, That's the Way of the World. It's so many. I would like for you all to check out their latter music from the 90s and the new millennium, because there's still some good music. So check out their later albums, and you will love that just as much as you do love the music from the classic period.
I'll never lose Chicago blues.
So I just feel blessed to, have good taste in music, be a fan of Earth, Wind, and Fire, I just feel blessed.
Hey, well, we're going to continue to celebrate. Hopefully we can drop a CityCast playlist for people to listen to. Dr. Trenton Bailey is professor at Clark Atlanta University. If you got some time, read Do You Remember, celebrating 50 years of Earth, Wind, and Fire. We appreciate you making time for us today.
Thank you, brother. Thank you for having me. Glad I could be here.
Before I let you go, some good news. The first South by Southeast Fest is this Saturday at 2 o'clock at Old Town Tap in Hegewisch. The fest will feature music, local vendors, and food, and is put on by the duo behind the Chicago podcast, South by Southeast. As always, we appreciate you for listening. Make sure you're following with our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, and our brand new website at chicago.citycast.fm. I'm going to talk to y'all bright and early tomorrow when I'm breaking down stories with the homies Manny Ramos and Alma Campos. I'll talk to you then. Peace. I kind of want to do it like one of them 1970s radio jockeys, one of them DJs. Today on CityCast Chicago, it's Earth, Wind, and Fire Day, all my cool cats and kittens. Officially, there was a whole proclamation by the mayor and everything. So let's groove and remember all the ways and reasons Chicago shaped one of the most iconic groups of all time. It's Thursday, September 21st. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's singing about, baby. Boy, I could have done that. I'd have been cold. Boy, I'd have been cold.